So the implications of constantly catastrophizing and constantly overthinking can really lead to what we call, analysis paralysis, decision paralysis. Okay. Usually what happens is because we're overthinking it so much, we lead to a delay or an avoidance altogether. Hi there, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I'm once again your host, Krista Gurka. I sound like a game show announcer. I am your host. Anyways, so I have an interesting topic today. I came up with this topic when I was actually on a walk listening to a podcast, and it resonated with me so much that I said to my team, I really want to do a podcast on this episode. And so the title of this podcast is Overcoming Overthinking. And I am a chronic overthinker. I should have worn the shirt today, but to record this podcast, I have a sweatshirt that I love that's called Overthinkers Club, now accepting applications. And so I think that many of the people that resonate with me and join my mentorship groups and listen to this podcast are similar in the fact that we tend to be, one, we're women, right? I work predominantly with women. And two, we tend to be high achievers. A lot of us came out of Gen X, right? Which is a whole thing unto itself. But a lot of us, in a lot of the calls I have and in a lot of the meeting in the forums and things like that, we talk in the one-on-one coaching calls that I do, we talk a lot about not only overthinking, but also catastrophizing. And this is something that I have worked on a lot for the last 5 or 6 years. And I will say, I make myself crazy. And for a while, I really thought that everyone thought the same. And I'm coming to recognize that not everyone is the same. And I send myself into these spirals that are just not necessary. They're not necessary for me to inflict this constant rumination and worry about things that are, one, either completely out of control, or two, completely made up in my head. Okay. And so I wonder if some of these things will resonate with you, and you wondering and you saying, yes, I think that same way too. And know that you're not alone, because I think that same way. But I think I mentioned it in a former episode. I've been doing a lot of episodes lately about mental health and my personal life, how I deal with raising kids and owning a business, and how my husband and I work together and partner together as an entrepreneur and a parent and a wife, and my mental health and going to therapy. And so I've gotten a lot of feedback from that, and I wanted to continue to do that. I think it resonated with a lot of people. And I was just talking about something like this with my therapist the other day. And I was like, I do this craziness to myself where I make myself crazy. Right. And I said this in an episode recently where I said, I have a lot of clients that will come in and say, oh, I just need to keep my phone with me. I think my kids are going to call from school, and they look at the phone and the school's calling, like, oh my gosh, is everything okay? When I used to look at the phone and saw that school was calling, the first thing I thought was, my son got into a fight. They punched someone in the face. The kid is hurt. The kid went to the hospital. The parents are going to press charges on me, and my kid's getting kicked out of school. Like, what is that? Crazy. Craziness, right? That is the first thing my head thinks. And then I also had I was having this recurring thought, this ruminating thought over and over again that I worked on for a while when my kids started driving, okay, that they were going to go to a party and they were going to drink a little bit, and then they were going to drive and they were going to get into a car accident, and the car accident was going to send them to jail, and in jail they would basically be sodomized in jail and beaten up and for the rest of their life. And if any of you back in the 90s watched Oz, I don't know if you remember what happened to the attorney that got in a drunk driving accident, went to jail, and he became someone's girlfriend. It was awful. This is what my mind goes through. This is what I do to myself. Like, I picture them like that's what their life is going to be like. They're going to accidentally make a bad decision, which is going to send them to jail, which is going to result in all the things, crazy things we see on TV about jail. Okay. I mean, insane. I even saying it out loud, I'm thinking to myself, that is crazy, right? That is crazy. And I make myself crazy. And then I act crazy where I become hyper vigilant and I am overbearing. And I'm like, oh my God, you can't do this. And can you call me? And this and this and this and this and this. And yeah, even just talking about it, I'm getting myself all riled up, and I'm going to need to take some deep breaths to like settle myself back down. But I wanted to do this episode so I could really define what overthinking and catastrophizing is and go through some of the actual studies. So I did a lot of research in preparing for this episode about the prevalence of what these negative thoughts and these ruminating thoughts, about the prevalence of whether they actually come true or not, right? And self-fulfilling prophecies and all of that. So let's first define what overthinking is and catastrophizing is. Okay. So overthinking is also known as rumination. Okay. And that is about the past. Okay. It's worry when it's about the future. Okay. Ruminating is about the past. Worry comes when you're thinking about the future. And catastrophizing is when you think always of like the worst case scenario, and it actually really feels like that is going to come to fruition. That's what's going to happen, is the worst case scenario. So I'll give you another example of like, and I just say this because you're going to be like, oh my God, this girl's batshit crazy. I remember my son coming home one time from basketball practice, and he was in high school at the time, and he came in and he was bummed out. He was in a bad mood. He went into his room. He slammed the door. He went to go take a shower. And then I kind of could hear him crying in the shower. And I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but like, this is what my head thought of. I was like, he got beaten up and bullied. This is not even funny, in the locker room. And they did something to him in the locker room where maybe they, again, beat him with a broomstick. I don't know if you guys saw like 13 Reasons Why and what happens in that scene, or even if you go all the way back to The Breakfast Club and the wrestler Emilio Estevez plays and he tapes his kids' butt cheeks together. But like, that's what I thought. Not that he had hurt his ankle, not that I was just like, or not that he was just upset about something. Maybe they told him he wasn't going to start or something like that. I went to this horrible, dark place. Yeah, crazy. I know, crazy, crazy. But anyways, so what happens to people, and so when I was researching some of these studies, it is found that women tend to ruminate 30% more than men do. Women tend to ruminate more, 30% more than men do. And it is highly linked to various psychological disorders like depression and anxiety. This is from the Journal of Clinical Psychology, in a 2010 study. So that's a while ago, but I would actually say it's probably gotten worse since 2010. All right. Why do we see it predominantly too in women business owners? Well, entrepreneurs often deal with a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty can trigger catastrophizing and ruminating, especially when people don't have a lot of knowledge or experience in that world. So one of the things we see a lot in my industry, in boutique healthcare and wellness, is that most of us did not go to business school. We did not have big business backgrounds. We are the practitioners, we're the therapists or the Pilates instructors, yoga instructors, bar instructors that started a business. And so when we don't have the access to the information of this is what's normal, this is what's not normal, that uncertainty can trigger these kind of overthinking and ruminating. What it leads to, so the implications of constantly catastrophizing and constantly overthinking can really lead to what we call, analysis paralysis, decision paralysis. Okay. Usually, what happens is because we're overthinking it so much, we lead to a delay or an avoidance altogether of making decisions. And avoiding making that decision can lean to burnout because constant rumination is mentally exhausting. Okay. And it doesn't even have to be about like catastrophizing, but I finally found out yesterday or the day before that I think my ERC, my employee retention credit, is coming back to me finally after 2 years. And so last night I literally didn't sleep. I was having all of these ruminating thoughts of what I was going to do with that money. Do I put away for taxes? Do I give bonuses to my team? Do I put it towards my retirement fund? Literally, it hasn't even come in yet. And this is what my mind is. Kept me up for 2 hours last night thinking about what I was going to do with the money once it came in. Is that necessary to do? No, it's not necessary to do now, for sure. Okay. The other thing ruminating and overthinking can do is it can really have an impact on creativity and innovation, which also affects team morale. And when team morale is down, it also limits creativity and innovation. So here's what usually happens. We as leaders, as owners, people come to us with ideas. We overthink it because we overanalyze it. We put off decisions, then we overthink it some more. And then our team's like, well, I give examples or I give ideas and they never come to fruition. And she's always stressed out. And so they stop giving you ideas because they know you're not going to follow through with them, which basically stifles creativity and innovation. And then people are like, yeah, I don't really want to work here anymore. Okay. So that's like the negative loop. So let's get into a few case studies. So I want to read through a few of the studies that I researched, okay, that talk a little bit about the causes and the results. Okay. Um, okay, so here's a study that was done in 2010 that linked overthinking to analysis paralysis, which is just what we were talking about. So when presented with too many choices, people were more likely to avoid making a decision, suggesting that overanalyzing multiple options can lead to decision paralysis. So it's now, if you think of this in terms of not only you as a business owner, but what about your customers? It's one of those things that I say when there's too many options, people avoid making a decision altogether. So when we have a gazillion options on our website, a gazillion different types of classes, a gazillion different, like, oh, you can do a 5-pack, a 10-pack, a 15-pack, a 20-pack, or you can do this membership or this membership or this membership. It's too many options and people will opt out, self opt out. So think about that in terms of setting your customers and your clients up for success so they don't have to make too many decisions and self opt out of making decisions altogether. The other thing is, if you know as a person that you get overwhelmed with decisions, if your team's going to come to you with something, tell them to bring you 2 decisions or 2 options, and you pick from those 2 options instead of 20 options. Narrow it down to 2, have someone on your team give you the 2, and then you can decide between those. Another study that was in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology in 2015 noted that people with social anxiety, for example, overpredict how noticeable their anxiety will be to others, but these predictions fail to come true 90% of the time. Only 10% of the time does it actually come true. And this is what they've called the negative prediction bias. So what that basically means is I post some funny memes about this too, about I'm kind of introverted or socially anxious. And so we'll do things where it'll be like, I have diarrhea of the mouth, and I'm like, da, 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 and people are going to think that I'm weird. And so then I'm saying that this is definitely what they thought of me. But that is 90% of the time, they aren't thinking about that at all. Probably, to be honest, they're thinking about their own crap and how weird they looked, and they're not thinking about us at all. Okay. So consistently experiencing the worst or expecting the worst also is highly correlated to self-fulfilling prophecies, whereas the fear you are thinking of or expecting, okay, makes it more likely to happen. So let me give you an example. If someone overthinks an interview, for example, if someone overthinks an interview or they fear they'll likely perform in an interview, their nervousness might negatively affect their outcome, because it's like, what you seek, you shall find kind of thing. Okay. It can also, just like I said about these ruminating thoughts I was having last night and these worry, it can affect your health implications, including sleep disturbances, digestive, and weakened immunities. So, people that are highly stressed because they're always overthinking about the future, about the past, okay, have poor sleep, which affects their immune system. So they might get sick earlier, I mean, more often. All right. And then they have high stress. They also have gut issues. A lot of our immune system lives in our gut. We can go down the rabbit hole this way. So I want you, though, to understand that analyzing things is not what's terrible. We can have adaptive problem solving and analytical skills without creating maladaptive rumination and overthinking. So while reflecting on a problem or an issue or a solution is helpful, getting stuck in a ruminating loop can be very detrimental. So, what we want to do is start to learn how to create adaptive strategies like solution focused thinking, okay, rather than maladaptive strategies like ruminating. So let me give you an example. You're a business owner, and someone on your team sends you a Slack message or a text or an email or whatever have you and says, "Do you have time tomorrow at 12:30? I see you have a break in your schedule. I'd like to have a meeting." Okay. Maladaptive thinking. Oh my gosh, this person's going to quit. They're definitely going to quit. What am I going to do with their schedule? They have 20 hours on their schedule. What am I going to do with those classes? How am I going to tell the rest of the team? What are they going to do with me? Are they going to work for someone else? Did someone poach them? Oh no, they're going to go open up their own studio, and now they're going to take all of these people with them. How long are they going to give me? Are they leaving tomorrow? What's going to happen? Okay. Maladaptive thinking. Adaptive strategies. Sure, I'm happy to meet with you tomorrow. Would you be able to tell me what this is in reference to, just so I can prepare? Now you don't have to ruminate. Oh, I actually just really want to talk to you about my schedule. I was considering adding another class. Great. Okay. Or if it comes to fruition that they're like, I'm leaving, what is a a solution focused activity you can do now? What is a solution focused activity? I'm really sorry that you're leaving. Do you think you could give us 3 weeks at least so that we can try to reorganize the schedule? And how can you set yourself up in the future so that this doesn't happen again? So that you don't have all your eggs in one basket when it comes to staff. Okay. So instead of getting in these negative loop cycles, ask for what you need. If you hate being surprised, say, "I'm happy to meet with you. Can you tell me what this is in reference to?" Okay. Or if you have to bring awareness, or you have to have a difficult conversation with someone, instead of putting it off and off and off because you don't like confrontation, just remember, make the decision early. Give yourself time to just say, I'm going to make a decision by this time. I'm going to have the conversation. And more often than not, it's the anticipation of all of that that makes us more crazed. And usually it works out. It works itself out. Right. Okay. So, especially when it comes to like life with your kids and things like that, I want to go over some solutions. Okay. Or some things, a variety of solutions. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's worked for me. All right. And some things that I found in the research that are very helpful for other people. Okay. So there's a couple things. Like, one is accepting. Not all decisions will lead to perfect outcomes. And you can make a decision and have it not work out. But you can plan for that. Okay. What's the worst case scenario if this happens? I'll give you a perfect example. My older son was applying to college, and I was getting all stressed out about and if you're in this, and my younger son's applying right now, I'm in a very different mindset now. But if you're a parent of a high school junior or senior, you know what I'm talking about. Or even a college, you remember what this was like. And I was getting very stressed out about the whole college thing. Oh my gosh, he's getting lazy on his applications, or he's not doing them. And my therapist once says, and what's the worst that's going to happen? He's not going to go to college. So I would be like, he's not going to go to college. And she's like, and I'd be like, I don't know. He won't do anything. Is that what he's proven to do now? No. So again, it's like, what's the worst that will happen? He doesn't go to college. Okay. And what will result with that? To live at home forever. Is that a decision I can make to change? Okay. Like, he doesn't go to college now. Does he go a year from now? Yeah. Is that a terrible solution? Probably not. Right. Or if I'm like, no, he's not going to go to college, and then he's going to be homeless. And then and then she's like, do you have evidence that that would happen to him? I'm like, no, I don't have evidence of that. Okay. So the other thing is, journaling is really great. People writing things down, giving yourself a boundary of when you're going to make that decision by. And this is where like accountability groups and mentorship groups or accountability partners will help you with that. Because a lot of times as leaders, there's no one above us saying, get this done, get this done, get this done. But if you put it out there to an accountability group or to accountability partner, and they're like, oh, you need to have this done by this time, it decreases the amount of rumination too, because you're like, I have to have it done by tomorrow. So let's talk about some interventions or some things that you can do, some mindset shifts, some reframing. All right. So cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, talks a lot about reframing thoughts. So we identify, we challenge, and we replace the maladaptive thoughts. So instead of thinking, if this client or patient doesn't agree to sign up for a membership, I'm a failure, I would say to you, is there evidence to support that? Okay. Can one single patient saying they don't want to sign up for a membership really dictate your self-worth? Right. So then the alternative thought that you replace with that is, well, it will be disappointing if I don't get to work with them, but there's more clients that are going to come through the door. Or I'll do a better job of articulating the value next time. Or the thought of, oh, I can't figure out this new project management system, I'm a failure. Instead, you could say, I'm learning how to work with this project management system, and I'll get better over time. Right? Those are the ways that you can change and replace the maladaptive thinking. I'm not good at this business thing. I'm learning how to be a better business person. All right. So another intervention for catastrophizing is evaluating if that worst case scenario is really terrible. right? So, if my son doesn't get into college, his life is over. And, I would say, or my therapist would say to me, what's the worst thing that would happen if he doesn't get into college? Okay. So the other thought would be like, he'll deal with the decisions of not getting into college. He's an adult at 18, he can go second semester. He can go next year. There's lots of successful people that don't go to college. He'll figure it out. And it doesn't mean anything about me as a mother that my son decided not to go to college. Okay. So the things I like to say to myself: one, do I have evidence to support this? Is it true? Two, if I do have evidence to support this, what's really the worst case scenario? And is that so bad? Okay. So I'll give you another example. We have a thing where refund policies are a big thing. And we talk about this in our mentorship programs, where for physical therapy, we say, if by your fourth visit, you are not fourth visit in 4 weeks. So if you do 4 visits in 4 weeks, you are not seeing the results that you want, we will refund your fourth visit. So the pushback I get from people is, well, then everyone will just refund the visit. And the pushback I used to have was, well, what would keep people from just, everyone will ask for a refund? And then I started thinking, how many people have actually asked for a refund? And I was like, none. Nobody's ever asked for a refund. And if somebody really is going to ask for a refund and they're not getting better, then those are not the clients that I want anyways. Okay. So we don't want to assume things are going to happen. We actually have to have proof that that happens. The other thing I like to say to myself is, if it's out of my hands, it should be I should release it from my mind. So if a decision's been made, or for example, my kids applying to college, the applications are in, it's out of my hands. I shouldn't worry about it anymore because there's nothing I can do to control it. Right. Same thing with getting like this ERC credit back. Like this was something I applied for in March of 2021. I did the application. It's out of my hands. I shouldn't worry about when I'm going to get that money. It'll come when it comes. There's another technique that actually works really well, which helps calm your nervous system. This is a very common like nervous system regulator, parasympathetic nervous system engager, which is really grounding. Okay. We call it either 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So they do identify 5 things you can see, identify 4 things you can touch, identify 3 things you can hear, identify 2 things you can smell, and identify 1 thing you can taste. And by taking this and changing, like just taking your mind away from that ruminating thought helps. So I can see myself on Zoom. I can see my computer. I can see the window. I can see my dog. Okay. I can touch my desk. I can touch my hair. I can touch my skin. I can touch my heart. I can hear my voice. I can hear the clock ticking, and it just takes your mind away from it. Grounding is also a technique where you can do where you're sitting in, you're out in nature, barefoot on rock or stone or sand or grass. Again, it really helps. Again, what it does basically is brings you to the present. So it takes your senses, and instead of going in the past and the future, it brings you to the present. So if you're grounding and your feet are in grass, you're feeling the grass, you're in the sun, you're smelling the air, right? So it takes your senses and brings you to the present. Meditation is great, and people are like, oh, I can't meditate. You can meditate for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Okay. So there's those kind of things that you can do. And so I want to give you that. There's a few studies that came out. Let me see. Let me just find these studies that I came by. Okay. So there was a study that was out in 2019, so still before the pandemic, but I think that this was really great. It was a case study of a female-owned small business, a female small business owner. Okay. And what they were doing was they took a variety of small business owners, females, and they asked them to integrate 10 minutes of daily meditation. 10 minutes. It's not that long. Well, it might seem long to you, but 10 minutes. Okay. And they found that over 3 months, 75% of the business owners reported better clarity, reduced anxiety, and improved focus. The study is the effects of mindfulness-based stress reduction on employees. All right. Another case study, this one was from 2017. So they took entrepreneurs and they did what the main complaint was, they were feeling overwhelmed by the constant influx of strategies and business news and new trends and trying to keep up. So what they did, and I've actually done this. So I didn't look at it from this study, but it's something that I did a while ago, and I'll tell you what example. So what they did was they limited the exposure to such information, and it found a 70% reduction in overthinking tendencies and an 80% increase in focus and completion of tasks. So one of the things that I did for a while was, I'll give you two things. So there was a period of time where I was like on information overload, and I was trying to learn more about business, and I was looking at competitors, and but the feeling I was getting was I'm less than, and I'm not doing enough, and I'm not keeping up enough. And so what I did was I deleted a bunch of people from social media that I couldn't follow. And so once it wasn't in my line of sight and in my constant daily feed, I was able to focus more. And I stopped that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind. First of all, things on social media are fake for the most part. All right. So just recognize that. The other thing that I did was, again, before I used to feel very, what's the word I'm looking for? I would feel very, I want to say angry, but that's not the word. Like personally inflicted when a team member would leave. And then I would constantly, see them on Instagram or Facebook and doing different things. I'd be like, oh, they were doing this before. And I would have again, crazy stories in my head that I was making up that were doing me, again, it wasn't bringing me joy. It was not serving me. It was not doing anything except fueling this little inner voice of constant overthinking and worry. And so same thing, what I did was I just stopped following them. And if I don't see it, it's fine. If people on Instagram irritate you, then stop following them. You don't have to engage, especially if it doesn't do anything for you. Right? Is this serving you? Is this helping you in any way? And if the answer is no, then stop following them. Don't go on TikTok. Limit your scrolling. Learn to say things like, one, is this real? Two, do I have evidence to support this? And three, can I do anything about it? If you can do something about it, then do it then. Don't ruminate about it. If you can't do anything about it, let it go. Let it go. And say in your head, what if it all works out? Okay. What if, oh my gosh, I don't know about expanding, getting another thing and this and this, and this person's going to open down the road for me. And what if it all works out? What if it all works out? What if a studio opening down the road to you brings more people doing Pilates or yoga into your neighborhood and gives you an opportunity to attract new people? What if it all works out? And that, my friends, is what I want to leave you with. What if it all works out? The universe will conspire in your favor. And most often, things are going to work themselves out. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you will give it some thought. I would love for you to DM me over on Instagram at Krista Gurka, or maybe even take a screenshot of you listening to this podcast and tag me. I love to hear if my rambling is resonating with any of you. And until next time, my friends, bye for now.